BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, this is the Farming Today podcast. News on farming, food, the environment and much more besides. I'm Kaz Graham, and in this episode, farmers who supply the wheat that makes bioethanol are warned the production plant that makes it will close without government support. And decision day nears for Galloway. Will it become Scotland's newest national park?
There's going to be a lot more tourists. Housing prices will definitely go up.
Galloway's in decline. Young people are all leaving. I'm not saying the national park will solve all the problems, but we can start doing something differently and think the bigger picture.
Well, we'll be visiting southwest Scotland to hear both sides of the argument a little later. First, though, a whole new dimension to half-term traffic grief. Imagine tractors on the motorway. There's a row brewing in Ireland about whether tractors should be allowed on motorways. At the moment, they are in Ireland, not in the UK, that is, as long as they're capable of travelling at more than 50 kilometres an hour. That's just over 30 miles an hour. The Irish Road Haulage Association wants them banned, but farmers are dead set against it. Well, it's a story that got us talking in the Farming Today office about the speeds that tractors can get up to. The official speed limit on UK public roads is around 25 miles an hour for most tractors, although a few specific models with different safety standards are allowed to travel at up to 40 miles an hour. I asked Ed Dennett from the tractor company Fendt how fast modern tractors can go.
Some will do in excess of 40 miles an hour. Obviously, the local legislation determines how fast they're actually allowed to go in the different markets. But, I mean, there have been some that can go even quicker than that. So.
Why are they manufactured to go that fast? Why would they need to go that fast?
It's very much like cars. And, for example, they tend to get made so that they cover as much legislation as possible. So there doesn't need to be any or too many changes. In markets like Germany, for example, a tractor can legally travel up to 60 kilometres an hour. And then obviously, if other markets are slower than that, then they can be configured in that way if that's legally required.
OK. I mean, is there a correlation between the power that new tractors need because of the weight of the machinery that they need to tow and the speed that they can go at? Is there a relationship there?
Yeah, so I mean, as you've seen tractors get heavier, if you like, and bigger, there's more power, and that means they're able to travel faster. But I mean, I think as well, it's been to do with technology introduction. So the big one for a machine to be able to do 40 kilometres an hour is that it has to have front axle suspension, which came in the 1980s really and onwards. As comfort cab suspension, all-wheel suspension on some machines has come in, with those technological developments, then the speed is able to be higher because, as you can imagine, if you were driving an old two-wheel drive machine from 50s or 60s at 40 miles an hour, it wouldn't have been very comfortable or safe.
And you do see massive machines nowadays, don't you? I mean, and they do seem to come at some speed, hurtling down country roads sometimes. How heavy are some of them as well? And do you think the people who drive them are fully aware of their stopping times?
Legally speaking, I think in the UK the total train weight should be no more than 31 tonnes. And I think it can be easy to forget what you're driving, and you do need to be, as an operator, aware of the fact that the stopping distance is longer. You've got a lot of inertia. That's really what it's about. And it's about also making sure that you're not just the tractor, but the machine or trailer that you're towing behind you has got the correct braking system on to be able to brake the load that you're towing, because the tractor brakes are there to stop the tractor itself. They're not there to stop the machine behind. That's what it has brakes for. I think it's one of those where, unfortunately, until you're in an emergency stop situation, you perhaps don't realise what you've got.
And as you say, tractors are so much bigger and more powerful and faster than they used to be. How much is the training that tractor drivers get? How much has it changed to reflect that increased power?
Interestingly, I mean, I was just taking a look before this at the government website about it. I think in reality, the licensing requirements have not really changed all that much over the years, and there are various different bodies calling for whether there perhaps should be increased training or different licensing requirements to operate some of these machines now. I mean, certainly on the continent, in certain markets, you're required to have an HGV licence to drive some of these machines, just because of the fact that perhaps the size and speed of machines that they're capable of is not, the licensing requirements have perhaps not kept pace with that. But I mean, ultimately, it's down to the operators to ensure that they're safe, they understand what they're driving, that they know how to the legislation for their local market, and to drive accordingly, basically, and drive according to where they are and what they're doing.
That's Ed Dennett. And if you have any thoughts on tractors and the speeds they go, do get in touch with us. You can email us at farming.today@bbc.co.uk. Farmers who supply wheat to Britain's biggest bioethanol plant have been told it may have to close unless the government intervenes, and that wheat purchases will be scaled back from next month. The company that runs the plant, Vivergo Fuels, says it will be impossible to compete with subsidised American ethanol after the recent trade agreement with the US promised to scrap tariffs on imports. Bioethanol is added to the E5 and E10 petrol that you see at the pumps to reduce its carbon emissions. It's made by fermenting wheat to make alcohol, and the leftovers are used for animal feed. Ben Hackett is the firm's managing director.
Over the last decade, we've taken wheat from about 12,000 farms, and at capacity we can process about 1 million tonnes per year. So 3,000 tonnes per day of wheat comes through our factory gates. And that wheat just has a slightly lower protein content than it would have were it to be used in flour to make bread, cakes, biscuits, etc.
How great an impact, then, will the removal of tariffs on US bioethanol have on the UK market?
The tariff-free ethanol will completely displace us in the UK market. It's a subsidised ethanol. They use genetically modified crops, genetically modified yeast. All the advantages they have, we don't have. And in this deal, effectively, the government has given us no room to compete at all.
You met the Business and Trade Secretary about this almost 3 weeks ago now. What's happened since then?
Look, we continue to have dialogue with various departments in government. I think the big thing really was just the lack of speed. Reynolds said, look, we'll get onto this in days. As you say, it's been weeks now, and we're still not seeing anything concrete coming out of government at all. So we're extremely concerned. We're on a very short timeline here. We process 3,000 tonnes of wheat per day. We have a limited supply. We're going to have to buy new stocks of wheat to replenish the stores we have. And unless we have some certainty that the bioethanol industry has a future, which, to be fair, the government can give us with a stroke of a pen, but without those certainties and guarantees from the government that they'll work with us, we face a very, very uncertain future. I'm very uncertain.
How can it give you those reassurances at the stroke of a pen? I mean, it's not going to go back to the United States and change the tariff, is it?
No, but this industry could be a poster child for the government, and instead, like I said, it's almost been thrown under the bus. So I think there's 3 or 4 things that the government could do very easily. I want the government to ensure that the imported bioethanol has the same greenhouse gas credentials as the bioethanol that we produce. I want them to increase the volume of bioethanol that's used in petrol from E10 to E15, which will increase the market size for bioethanol in the UK. And I need them to subsidise our losses while they put in place those 2 changes, and we get back to an even playing field, a level playing field where we can compete on our own without any government support or any government intervention.
Ben Hackett, some people might say it makes more sense to use the limited land that we have in the UK to produce food rather than bioethanol. What would you say to them?
We need a balanced food versus fuel debate, there's no doubt about it. But in my mind, this feed-grade wheat is not food. It's not human consumption wheat. It is animal feed-grade wheat. We extract the bioethanol from that, and we put back the protein in the pellet form that goes to the animal feed manufacturers that goes to feed the dairy herd of the UK. So I would seriously contest that we're in any sort of compromise of food or fuel here.
Ben Hackett from Vivergo. Well, the Department for Business and Trade told us we signed a deal with the US in the national interest to secure thousands of jobs across key sectors. We're now working closely with the industry to understand the impact of the UK-US trade deal on the UK's 2 bioethanol companies and are open to discussion over potential options for support. The Scottish Government is due to make a statement tomorrow about whether Galloway is to get a national park. or not. We're discussing national parks all this week on the programme, and the proposal for the UK's next new national park has faced a mixed and sometimes stormy reception. Galloway, in the southwest of Scotland, was chosen from 5 potential locations. It has rolling moorlands, a beautiful coastline, rich farmland, and people with very different views about a national park. The first round of consultation on the plan was completed earlier this year, with its report now being considered by Scottish ministers. Richard Baines has been to Galloway to hear from both sides of the debate.
Here we are in this superb piece of Galloway. We're looking out towards Wigton Bay, the largest local nature reserve in Scotland.
I took a walk with Rob Lucas up a hill above his home near Kirkcudbright.
Away to the south, across this rolling farmland, we can see the Isle of Man. To our north, we can see the Cairnsmore and the High Fells.
Rob chairs the Galloway National Park Association, which has campaigned for 9 years for park status.
The great thing with the national park is that national park partnership plan, which produces that shared vision that people can get behind and have a meaningful say in what's going to happen in the area. The local authority, like all local authorities, is very stretched. A national park would obviously focus its resources on that rural area.
The proposed park boundaries are not yet clear, but there's a core area running north from the Solway coast into Ayrshire. The National Farmers Union Scotland opposes the park idea, saying there's no clear benefit for farmers. But not all farmers agree.
We've got Highland cattle and Bertie Galloways, both native to Scotland.
Neil Pickin runs Balmangan Farm, 300 acres close to the Solway coast.
We took the decision 5 years ago to start rewilding our farm because everywhere's just in decline, biodiversity and everything. We've seen a massive decline in birds and wildlife in general. We've got to do something different. Galloway's in decline, young people are all leaving, so we can sit back and do nothing, and it's just going to get worse and worse. I'm not saying the national park will solve all the problems, but hopefully it'll draw a line and we can start doing something differently and think of the bigger picture.
In Gatehouse of Fleet, at the heart of the proposed park, there are concerns.
There's going to be a lot more tourists, and we just don't have the road. The road's in bad disarray. Housing prices will definitely go up.
I think there would need to be some control on holiday lets and rent controls as well. If that was to happen in tandem with the national park, then yeah, I think it'd be a really good thing. But if it doesn't, then I could see it becoming really problematic.
It's detrimental to the local people. Nobody seems to want it.
We're down next to the River Fleet, next to the old mill. So this little area here is a community garden that I started. I just thought it would be a nice idea to bring the community together.
Denise Brownlee from Gatehouse founded the No Galloway National Park campaign.
If it was a national park, we'd start having signs telling people where they're going. The paths, which at the moment are almost deer tracks in places, suddenly become proper footpaths. It just sanitises it too much.
Denise also fears a surge in visitors if a park is set up.
The tourism numbers have gone up 20% recently, which is really, really good. But the problem is bringing in too many people. We've not got the toilet facilities to cope with it. We've not got the car parks to cope with it. Go into any of the lay-bys. People are emptying their chemical toilets because we don't actually have places that they can do this.
Yes, we would attract more people, but it would actually bring some resource to deal with that. So we have some issues at the moment, but we have no resource to deal with them. We need to bring this in to broaden the economy, but also we need that resource to help manage any issues that arise.
That's Rob Lucas ending that report from Richard Baines. And that statement on the decision about a new national park is due to be made in the Scottish Parliament tomorrow afternoon. And that's all from us for this morning. I'm Kaz Graham. The producer is Heather Simons. And Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.